Welcome to the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright, an exciting thrill ride through the wonderful world of HBCU athletics. Before our trip begins, let's set a few ground rules. First, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Second, hit the like button. Third, please be sure to tell someone else about this show. Now that we've got these things out of the way, it's time for our journey to begin. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your ride.
Welcome once again, people. You are now on the ride once again, and down the stretch they come. Tonight, we're going to have a special night of a lot of stuff to cover. So, you know, just as the intro said, hit the like button, subscribe, tell somebody else about this show, because you know what time it is. Yes, sir. It's time to fire it up. And you know when we fire it up, it's time to get right on into the montage. Week 11 style. Let's go. In the Big South OVC in Martin, Tennessee, it was the UT Martin Skyhawks getting their 5th consecutive win by having Thomas Ainsley run for 118 yards on the ground. Chris Franklin, 111 on the ground. Jace Bauer, the quarterback, he had 107 total yards and 2 rush TDs. En route to a 26-7 win over the Tennessee State Tigers, keeping the Tigers winless in Big South OVC play. They only gained 165 yards on the day, y'all. And Tennessee State, they are running out of time to get on the board in Big South OVC play. Next week, they get their final home game of the season against Gardner-Webb. In Stony Brook, New York, in CAA play, it was the Stony Brook Sea Wolves behind Quinn Boys, 380 yards passing, 3 TDs, 2 of them to Jace Freeman, who also had a big day, 140 yards receiving for him as they defeat the North Carolina A&T Aggies 38-12. The Aggies, a couple of turnovers, and they only gained 221 yards on the day. The season's almost over there, Aggies. 38-12. Next week, you get to go back home and play nobody but Monmouth. And also in the CAA, the Maine Black Bears, they get their 6th consecutive win behind Carter Peavy's 4 touchdown passes. Yeah, you saw it. He only threw for 121 yards, but he threw 4 TDs to 4 different receivers. Hampton, on the day, they started Earl Woods, only 86 yards passing. They really couldn't get much going, just too much Black Bears, 35-7. Hampton, next week, home finale against William and Mary. In the MEAC, the South Carolina State Bulldogs raced out to a 21-3 lead in the first quarter. Billy Atkins, 213, a touchdown, one of them to Jalen Johnson, who had 87 yards receiving. Jared Washington, pick 6 return for a TD. Also a blocked field goal return for a touchdown. And the Bison, it was a struggle on this day. Tariq Starks, 97 yards in the air. They were held to 63 yards rushing. 42-12. The Bulldogs, next week, they hit the road on Friday to play the North Carolina Central Eagles. For Howard, they get a chance to play spoiler at Delaware State on Saturday. Speaking of North Carolina Central, boy, this game went all the way down to the wire. North Carolina Central behind Walker Harris, 265, 3 touchdowns, 2 of them to Chauncey Spikes, who backed up his last week with another good game. Shout out to Otto Coons, man. He had a serious leg injury in this 3rd quarter, and that's probably going to end his career. The Spartans, they fought hard down to the end, but when you get 20 penalties for 167 yards, it leads to you not being able to take advantage in a 31-28 loss at the Eagles. The Eagles, as I said, big one on Friday against South Carolina State. Norfolk State, they go back home to play Morgan State. And speaking of Morgan State, did you see this one on Friday night on ESPNU? Delaware State had to outlast the Bears all the way down as Alex Amaya missed a 45-yard field goal on the last play of the game. Hayden Bennett, he was erratic in this game. 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions. James Jones, he picked up the slack nicely. 13 rushes, 115 yards as they outlast the Bears, 14-12 to stay unbeaten in MEAC play. Next week, Hornets get Howard. Morgan State, oh, you'll see if you can get it back with Norfolk State on the road. In the SWAC, oh, my Alabama A&M Bulldogs, y'all. Woo-hoo-hoo. Man, it was 48-5 by the Prairie View Panthers. Cam Peters, 394 in the air, 5 touchdowns, 3 of them to Josiah Rockwell, who had 183 yards himself. They outscored the Bulldogs 35-0 in the second half. For the Bulldogs, they were outgained 607-304. Prairie View, if they win next week, they'll be in the SWAC championship game. Their last 2 are at home next week against UAPB. A&M closes out its home schedule against FAMU. Speaking of FAMU, the Rattlers went to Pine Bluff yesterday. This was an exciting game if you didn't see it. R.J. Johnson, 235 in the air, 2 touchdowns, one of them to Goldie Lawrence. Thad Franklin put the game away with a long touchdown run, part of his 26 rushes for 122 yards. Oh, for the Golden Lions, this was a tough loss for them. Christian Peters had a really good game, 333 and 3 touchdowns. But in the end, it was the Rattlers advancing to 4-5 on the year and 3-2 in SWAC play. FAMU at Alabama A&M next week. UAPB hits the road to play Prairie View. Jackson State, all business, all the time in the Delta. Jared Lockhart, 21 out of 27, 241 yards and 2 touchdowns, both of them to Nathan Rembert, who returned back to Valley in a big way. Mike Smith, the third, chipped in with a 60-yard pick 6 as they hold down the Delta Devils. Shout out to Valley. They only gained 179 yards on the day. Jackson State stays right in line, controlling their destiny in the East race. Next week, Bethune-Cookman comes to Jackson. Valley, they go to Mobile to play Alabama State. Speaking of the Hornets, Tashawn Smoot chipped in a big way in his relief role. 215 yards passing, an 87-yard bomb on the first play of scrimmage from Alabama State to Jalen Jones. He had 148 yards and a touchdown. Mr. Marcus Harris, 3 touchdowns rushing. Texas Southern, they were officially eliminated from SWAC title contention. They played really well in this one. KJ Cooper had a good game. Atheon Renfro, 145 yards rushing, but in the end, too much Hornets at home in Montgomery, 42-24. Next week, the Hornets get Valley, while Texas Southern, they go to Southern. And speaking of Southern, the misery continues on this long season. Alcorn State, they take the Fred McNair Bowl, 35-17. Jalen Tolbert, 119 in the air, 2 touchdowns. Another rush touchdown. Reggie Davis, 110 on the ground as they hold Southern at just 74 rush yards. Oh, Southern can't get this season over quick enough. Alcorn, next week, it's Grambling in the reservation. Southern, next week at home against Texas Southern. And finally, we'll talk about this game plenty. Grambling, 31-23. Mr. Hayden Benoit, the 4-stringer. What 4-stringer? 4 touchdowns, 220 yards passing to 4 different receivers as they take out the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats, 31-24. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the montage for this evening. And what I want you to do, I want you to hit the like button. Everybody, hit that like button. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about. So, you know what we got to do. First off, though, I do want to go back and I want to talk about this game first. Okay. We got plenty of stuff to talk about here tonight. And everybody here in the comments, I'm taking all questions, I'm taking all suggestions, I'm taking all of it. We got a big show tonight. We got scenarios coming up. We've got we've got these ride tokens that I love to give out. We got all of that coming. All right. So yes, and thank you. Thank you. You heard the lady. Get the likes up. Get the likes up, y'all. All right. This game right here, man. Whoo-ee. This was a game that went back and forth on edge. And I got to first off say, before I get into this analysis of the game, man, the officiating, man, if you thought that SWAC officiating sometimes or many times can go left, the officiating in this game, whoo, man, this was not their finest hour. The first thing I have to say of officiating was, I will go right to that 2-point conversion. Okay. I was looking for the video. I would have pulled it up and showed it to you for those that didn't see this, but I'll just narrate it. So Randall Naughton, it was 14-6 in the fourth quarter. Randall Naughton has a long touchdown run. All right. And he cuts it from 14-6 to 14-12. Naughton, they go for a 2-point conversion. Naughton gets the ball in for a 2-point conversion. They call it good on the field. It goes to review. They overturn it. On the review, the officials, they thought that his rear end was on the ground. But when you look at it and when you were watching it in real time, it was just slightly above the ground. And that would have tied the game. So that was one other thing. The other thing that was a big call in this game was on the final drive that Morgan State had the ball, they tried to call targeting against quarterback Raymond Moore as he slid on a quarterback keeper. Then they changed the call to a personal foul once they saw there was no targeting. And what that did, that gave Morgan State 15 additional yards to be able to have a chance to try that game-winning field goal, which, as I said in the montage, Alex Amaya, he eventually missed that wide to the right. This game right here is just something that Delaware State needs to think about moving forward, because this is 2 weeks in a row that their vaunted running game has been stifled, okay? They were held to just over 100 yards total rushing in this game, all right? So last week, Norfolk State, they showed you a little bit of a blueprint about what you can do in stopping the run and trying to make them one-dimensional and force them to pass. Now, James Jones, he had another long touchdown run in this game, just like he did in the Norfolk State game. But that came on their very first drive of the game. The rest of the game, Caden Bennett really, really struggled. And this is something that if I'm Deshaun Jackson and crew, ahead of this game next week against Howard, and of course, I'll talk about that plenty on Wednesday, they got to find a way to get back to when they were dominating on the ground, because these last two games, that running game has been, very, very mortal, okay? And Caden Bennett, son, you cannot be throwing the ball into coverage as much as you've been doing, because eventually, if you continue going through the well, you go too often, eventually you'll get burned. And the thing that I'll also say as I close about this game, Morgan State, this is another game in the long recent history, where they have not been taking advantage of opportunities. Their offense in this game really, really struggled, but they had opportunities to really, really take this game by the reins, where they fumbled. They fumbled in the fourth quarter. That stopped the drive where they were heading into scoring range. And then also there were countless penalties and opportunities. So for Morgan State, this is officially the end of their season. And for Delaware State, you've got greener pastures ahead. But as you head into these last two at home, you better start tightening it up on offense. All right. Now, I'll talk about my Bulldogs, but this is more about what Prairie View did. Now, first off, for those that may not know about my Bulldogs, this is as banged up as we've ever been, okay? In the most recent history that Well, I've been following them for 30 years as an alum, when I was there, all this kind of stuff. But over 30 years of following this team, I've never seen us be banged up this much. All right. And the game started so well. It was 5-0. We kicked the field goal and got a safety and put Prairie View into some situations where their offense wasn't executing. And then all of a sudden, Prairie View, there was a switch that was flipped, and then the Cam Peters and Josiah Rockwell show started to show up. This game, where I knew the game was I knew where it was going, was solidified by the very last play of the first half, where Cam Peters throws a Hail Mary touchdown to Rockwell. And there was little resistance from the Bulldog defense. And I do have to say this because I promised my From the Hill podcast crew that I was going to say this tonight. And this is very appropriate that I say this tonight. I didn't expect a whole lot from our team in this first year under Coach Sam Shade. If you guys can go back and you can look at my preview back on August the 6th, okay? I said that we would finish 5-7. I actually appeared on multiple shows in the preseason and said that we would finish 5-7. I said that we would have our struggles. I thought our struggles would come on offense. I didn't think it would come on defense. So now, with everything that's been said from alums and certain fans, and people have been very upset, and I saw some people say that, well, we got rid of Maynard for this, and and then some people said, oh, well, Shade, he's supposed to be a defensive guy, and all these different things that were said. Listen, first off, pump the brakes. It's the first year of his tenure. Second of all, let's not get it twisted, man. We've had losing seasons before this. So I understand that you have expectations and you want to win. But like I said last week on Wednesday, everybody wants to win. Everybody does. So it takes time, and you got to give it time to build it. I believe in Sam Shade 100-fold. I believe in it. The problem that they've had is that when you lose your starting quarterback, you lose your stud tight end for a bulk of the season, you lose a lot of things, man. The margin of error gets very, very slim, right? So what they have to do, they got to finish out these last 2 games. Hopefully they can get a win next week against FAMU. We'll see. If not, the bottom line is there's still a mission that has to be done. They got to hit the portal, and they got to be able to rebuild and reload and get some studs on defense. And that's just where it is. But for Prairie View, this was a really, really good game for them. They came out here and they dominated. They did everything that they needed to do, and I completely commend them for their effort, because this is the type of game, after how disappointing they played in the fourth quarter down the stretch last week against Alabama State. This is the type of game that can give you a good shot in the arm. Now, for Prairie View, last 2 games, they're at home. They're going to play UAPB and they're going to play Valley. And so this is the type of game that should set them up to try to do some good things as they head up the road for what they hope is a SWAC championship. So on this day, this was about Prairie View taking advantage of the situation that was put before them, and they did so in a mighty way. All right. So I'm going to backtrack here, and I want to go right here back into the MEAC if I can. All right. Now I'll say a few things about South Carolina State Bulldogs. First of all, this team's pretty scary. If you haven't watched these guys by now, these guys are pretty scary. Okay. Offensively, they've been throwing the ball around. And also, what you haven't been noticing is, if you hadn't seen them, these guys play good defense. They've been really, really good on rush defense. And you can see that epitomized by they held Howard to 63 yards rushing on the game. All right. This game was over quick. You started off the game, it was touchdown, forced a punt. It was Howard had the ball first, they punted. They take it right down the field, touchdown. Ensuing kickoff, Howard pick 6 to Jarrett Washington. Period. End of story. right? Ended it quickly. So now for South Carolina State, what they have in front of them, they got a golden opportunity. And I'll get into all of the scenarios of the MEAC here towards the end of the show. But what I'll say is, I like to look at the Bulldogs, the South Carolina State Bulldogs right now, because of the way that they're playing on offense. They got some balance, and they're also playing pretty good defense. But all that's going to be put to the test on Friday at this team. Now, this team right here, North Carolina Central. First off, let me say again, put some prayers up there to Otto Coons, man. Otto Coons, the quarterback of Norfolk State, fifth-year senior, had a devastating leg injury there in the third quarter where he was carted off. There was a lot of emotions in this game, man. There was a Norfolk State coach that got ejected. It was crazy. And but this game, man, Norfolk State, in typical Norfolk State fashion, they fought, but they come up just short by making a lot of mistakes. 20 penalties. That is not a misprint. 20 penalties for 167 yards. You cannot beat anybody when you do 20 penalties. And now North Carolina Central, and I'm pretty sure that when I'm on the call for the MEAC tomorrow and we're talking to Coach Trey Oliver, I'm pretty sure that he's not going to be very happy with the way this game ended. And also not going to be happy with the way they play defense, because there were some receivers that were running open, right? But in the end, they knew that they needed to win, and they did, right? Walker Harris, another good game by his standards, 3 TDs. Chauncey Spikes has been turning it up. Last week, he had 208 yards receiving, and he had 2 touchdowns, or 3 touchdowns last week. This week, he follows it up with 2 touchdowns. For North Carolina Central, it is very simple. They got to get it done on defense, because this game coming up on Friday, this is the last stand for them. They're very much alive in that MEAC race, but they need to get this one done on Friday, or else it's else. And also, I'll say it again for Norfolk State. If you had 1-11 on your bingo card, congrats to you, because they are trending to possibly hit 1-11, because they're going to finish the rest of the season with a backup quarterback. So that's where it is for Norfolk State and North Carolina Central as they get ready for a big game on Friday there at home in Durham. Now, everybody, make sure you hit the like button as we go back into the SWAC. FAMU. Now, this game was on HBCU Go, and this was a really exciting fourth quarter. There were 35 total points scored in the fourth quarter. FAMU, they led the game 17-7 going into the fourth quarter, and then that's when all of a sudden the offense just started going crazy. Nobody seemed to be able to stop anybody in the fourth quarter. Thad Franklin got loose. Jamal Haley got loose. And shout out to Jamal Haley. Jamal Haley, if you might recall, or if you might know, the Dallas Cowboy player Marshawn Neeland, who lost his life this week. He was a former teammate of Jamal Haley when they played at Western Michigan together. And Jamal Haley, he said that he was playing this game in his honor, and he scored a touchdown, and it was a really, really cool salute to him. The thing that UAPB, and this is what you said, and I like that, like what he said. He said, we just needed one stop about 6 different times. That's really what it boiled down to, man. You just couldn't get, it was crazy, because every single time when it seemed like, okay, like FAMU on the touchdown that Haley had, that pushed it to a 10-point lead, it was like, all right, it's over. Good night. And then Christian Peters leads them right back down the field. Okay, now they need one more stop. Then Thad Franklin gets loose. They just needed one stop, man. And I will say again, UAPB, man, listen, I don't care what you think about UAPB. Listen, I'm a big fan of Alonzo Hampton. But this team right here, man, they've been hard luck in many places. And FAMU, they can probably tell you the same thing, that they've been hard luck too. This was a game where they were tested on the road, and they got one done. Now, they're playing for pride for the rest of the way, according to the players. And also in popular belief, people still think that James Colsey might be on the hot seat. That's neither here nor there. But at this point, This was another win that they needed to get, and they got it done. It was exciting. So shout out to both teams. All right, now let's talk about this one here, down on the Delta. This game right here, this is just what it just boiled itself down to. It's just, this was all about business. That's it. It was just business. Just business. Jackson State, they were a huge favorite in this game, and there was never a doubt that they were going to win this game, even from the start. Never a doubt. They first possession, they punted, and that was about it. The rest of it was let's just run the ball. But you know what was really, really cool is I love it when I say some things on my Wednesday show and it comes to fruition. I said on Wednesday, that this was a game that Jackson State just needed to be efficient, and Jackson State needed to be able to get some confidence in their backup quarterback. Well, I'd say that when you throw for 21 out of 27 and 241 yards and 2 touchdowns and no turnovers, I would definitely say that that's instilling some confidence in your backup quarterback. And also, shout out to Nathan Rembert. He returned back to Valley where he became a stud, and he had a great game. He had almost 100 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Listen, this was never going to be anything that Jackson State had to worry about. As I said, this was about just playing a clean game, man. They had 4 penalties. 4 penalties. That's it. Jackson State fans, you've been talking about too many penalties all season, and you only had 4 penalties for 44 yards. That's it. So you should feel real, real cool about that. And also, shout out to Mike Smith III, man. 60-yard interception return for a touchdown. So all 3 phases, you did what you needed to do. And now you're on that fast track where next week you get to get back home and you finish with 2 in the vet. And now it is on your racket in the vet. Shout out to Valley, though. They running out of time to try to get a SWAC victory. They got 3 more opportunities. It's going to be kind of difficult, though, when you got Alabama State down in Mobile next. And then, you've got Prairie View on the road. And then you finish with FAMU on Thanksgiving weekend. So, we'll see how it goes. But for Jackson State, this was just about business, man. And all the Jackson State fans, y'all know what it was. Y'all know what it was. It was just about just do what you need to do. As he said, the business of business is business. I love that, man. I love that. The business of business is business. He said, come on, Valley, run the table. Yeah, okay. We'll see about that. But all right, let's move forward. All right, Alabama State. This was a battle, man, for 3.5 quarters. Texas Southern, they brought it. They came to play. And that was something that I also said. I said that Texas Southern, after laying an egg last week against Alcorn at home, I said that they were going to come out with a much better effort, and they did. This was back and forth for a while, man. I mean, it was 24-21 that Texas Southern had the lead there in the 3rd quarter. And then Alabama State, they forced a couple turnovers, and then they got a few stops, and then the running game took over. Marcus Harris, just like that FAMU game, he had 3 touchdown runs, all in close range. Tashawn Smoot, they only asked him to throw it 13 times. And that first play, that bomb to Jalen Jones, 87 yards on their first play from scrimmage, it set the tone for them. Now, they're going to need their star if they believe if they're going to have a chance to win a championship. And of course, they still need help, which we'll talk about here later. But for last night, this was a game that it was just about, look, let's just do what we need to do to get a win. Texas Southern, they are officially eliminated from SWAC title contention with this loss. And something that they're going to look back at on this season, they're going to look back at week number 1, where they just couldn't finish it against Prairie View. They'll also look at the fact that they had inconsistencies on offense. Defensively, they played really, pretty even most of the SWAC. Yesterday, this was just one of those days where the gas finally ran out of the car. So for Chris Dishman, you still have an opportunity to finish with a winning record as you have Southern on the road and you got Alabama A&M in the finale. But they fell short according to what he was saying. He said that we could win the West, and this was a team that really did have a chance to win the West. But in the end, they just didn't get it done in the key moments. The Prairie View game and also last week's performance against Alcorn State wasn't good enough for their standards. And so for Alabama State, you get to move on, you stay alive, and you're going to need to continue to keep winning. Now for the McNair Bowl on the reservation. This game didn't have much intrigue at all. Alcorn State, they just came right out. And I expected that Alcorn State would win this game. I said they would score 35, and they did score 35. I just thought that, I thought that Southern would play hard because, their interim coach, Fred McNair, he was returning back home, and, they definitely wanted to make sure that they put on a good showing for him. But in the end, they couldn't run the ball, 74 rush yards. Again, this is something Southern fans, you've already heard this many, many times over and over and over. So there's no sense for Wild Wayne to beat the horse for you. So I'll talk about Alcorn. For Alcorn, these last 2 weeks, this is another thing that you can say is what could have been. Because like Texas Southern, they're also eliminated from SWAC championship contention. But the fact that they're eliminated from SWAC championship contention, one thing that you can say about them is these last 2 weeks, they played pretty good. Played really, really good, up to some of their standards. And let Coach Thomas say it. He'll tell you that, hey, we've left a lot of meat on the bone, and he'll probably say it tomorrow that they left some meat on the bone. Yeah, Jalen Tolbert turning the ball over, throwing 2 interceptions. He won't be happy about that. But, hey, you threw 2 touchdowns. You ran for another. And, this game was never really in doubt. Now, for Southern, hey, it's about what can you do to not go 1-11. Next week, you get your home finale against Texas Southern, and then you got the Bayou Classic. So, really, this is about how do you want to finish this season? Because this thing right here, I'll be curious to see how many people will show up there on the bluff next week for senior day. We'll see. I know folks will show up there at the Bayou Classic, but most of them folks will probably be showing up for some of the entertainment. So for Alcorn, you get to finish your home schedule next week with Grambling coming to the reservation. And speaking of Grambling, I'll finish my analysis part of the show with this. So I know that there was a whole lot of opinions about this game. And yes, Wild Wayne has his opinions too. And I'm going to say all that I want to say about, the extracurricular activities here in a moment. But for this game right here, shout out to Hayden Benoit, man. 4-string quarterback, comes in, throws 4 touchdowns. Threw it to 4 different guys. He was poised. He looked like he belonged out there. For real. Looked like he's been out there for longer than just 2 weeks. He played really, really good game. This was very active in terms of scoring. It was 24-20 at the end of the first half. And then second half, it was 7-3. Defense kind of stepped up. Cam Ransom in this game, my goodness, man. This was a day that Cam Ransom definitely wants to forget. He fumbled the ball 3 times and lost 2 of them. 2 times. And Tim McClain came in the game, backed him up, played really, really well. This game, where it really, really turned. First possession of the fourth quarter, it looked like Bethune-Cookman, trailing 24-20, was heading down there to get a go-ahead score. And then Ransom fumbled, and they never recovered. And Hayden Benoit took it right back down the field, and they got a touchdown in 31-20, and that was pretty much end of story. Now, Grambling, shout out to them because, hey, it ain't always look pretty. It ain't always look great. But at the end of the day, they're 7-3. And they have their first winning season in a good little minute. And they should feel good about themselves as they head to the end of the season. For Bethune-Cookman, it's what could have been. It's the opportunities that were lost in this game. And now, I want everybody's take that's in the comments about the extracurricular activities. I'm not going to show the video because everybody's seen it by now and you've seen it multiple times. But this is what Wild Wayne's take on everything that happened. First and foremost, I'm not a fan of any fighting in any way, shape, or form. Doesn't matter to me who started it because it takes two people to engage. And yeah, I saw all the videos, all of them, every last one of them where people were talking about the players from Bethune-Cookman that were walking down the runway with the Grambling players as they were entering the field and starting into the second half. And yeah, I saw Mickey Joseph's comments on that as well, and I'll comment about that here in a minute also, okay? Yeah, the players were John from Bethune-Cookman. They were talking. Yeah, they were doing all that. But you know something, though? You still don't have to engage. In this day and age, there are so many different examples out there where people have been fighting all over the place, okay? And the thing for us in our culture, you know how it is. When one HBCU fights or two HBCU fights, it's every HBCU that's fighting. And it was shared all over social media, everywhere. Even Jason Whitlock, old musty tail, had some nasty words to say about it. Okay? You saw it all over the place. There was also a fight that happened at Louisiana Lafayette playing Texas State. Nobody talked about that fight in the same regularity as they talked about this fight right here. Now, also, what also is wrong is the fact that Bethune-Cookman, shame on that assistant coach. You got no business being on the opposite sideline like that. And I know, yeah, you know, he whatever he was doing, you know, he initiated some stuff too. He had no business being over there. So I'll say that's wrong also. But just for everybody to be mixed up and doing all of the fighting, it's just not cool, man. And there's going to be some suspensions. You know how it's going to be. Stuff's going to be handed out. Now, I'll go to what Mickey Joseph said. He said, "We will not be disrespected." Here's what Jalen Hamilton, let's see what you say. Yeah. He said, we handle disrespect with disrespect. Yeah, that right there. Now, I'll tell you, I love Mickey Joseph. Big fan of him, cool with him. He's a good dude, okay? I don't want anybody to say that these comments are a representation of who he is, because it's not. These comments right here, to me, this wasn't his finest hour. Okay, we've all had moments when it wasn't our finest hour. Okay, but I will say that him saying what he said, that we will not be disrespected. Okay, that is almost where it can be interpreted, and it was interpreted that you were condoning that fighting was okay, and it wasn't. Okay, so bottom line is fighting will never be cool. And we can't support that. And everybody that's out here, you know, talking trash about it and whatever, please stop. I know you probably won't, but don't do it. Let's just leave it for what it was. It was an ugly place, ugly moment. You know, a lot of fans. There were some kids who were sitting there watching that stuff. Just bottom line, let's just leave it where it was. So at the end of the day, Grambling, they win a game that they really needed to stay alive in the race, and they did. They got it done. All right. So that's where I'll leave that one. Okay, now everybody make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the like button as we hit into what is the nice part of the show. As we roll down the stretch, we will go into the SWAC scenarios. Also, we'll have the MEAC scenarios. So I will start. I'm going to start with the MEAC scenarios first, okay? All right, let's go MEAC scenarios first, and then we'll go to the SWAC scenarios, all right? So everybody follow me and listen. I appreciate everybody tagging me on Facebook and everything like that. Want to get explanations and all that. Listen, I do my explaining right here on the screen, man, with these wonderful graphics that everybody can see and understand, and we'll do it. All right. So I'll start with the MEAC ones and then I'll go SWAC ones next. Okay. So here's the clinching scenarios as of right now in the MEAC. Okay. Both teams, you're talking about South Carolina State and Delaware State. Both teams are 3-0. Okay. Delaware State, they host Howard, and South Carolina State, they hit the road Friday to take on North Carolina Central. If both teams win their games this week, very simple. They play each other in the final weekend on the 22nd in Dover, Delaware. That would be winner take all. Winner, they would both be 4-0. Winner would take all, win the MEAC title, and go to the Celebration Bowl. All right. That's if both win. That's the easiest way that things can be settled in the MEAC. All right. Both win, winner take all next week. Then you'll know who the champion is. Okay. Both teams are still alive in the final week, regardless of this weekend's outcomes. All right. Now, for North Carolina Central, they're 2-1. As many people know, they lost to Delaware State. They must win on Friday to stay alive against South Carolina State. If they do not win this game on Friday, they are eliminated. All right. So they need to win to stay alive for what I will show you coming up next. Okay. This is what it is right now for each of the three teams. Okay. Delaware State, they can win the MEAC by beating Howard this week and South Carolina State to finish 5-0. That's the easy one. Or 2 South Carolina State losses. That would mean South Carolina State would have to lose its last 2. And that's how that Delaware State could win. For South Carolina State, easiest way, just win your last 2. North Carolina Central, you need 2 wins. You need to win this one on Friday. And then you also need to win your finale against Morgan State. And then you're going to also need Delaware State to lose to South Carolina State to set up a 3-way tie. And all 3 could end up being tied at 4-1 by defeating each other. Okay. Now, all of the tiebreakers that I have are coming up. Delaware State, they've already beaten North Carolina Central. And then this would mean that North Carolina Central would beat South Carolina State this Friday. And then South Carolina State would have to beat Delaware State in the finale. And that would set up a 3-way tie at 4-1. So if all 3 ended up 4-1, here's what you got. Okay. All right. This is the MEAC tiebreaker policy. And this is what is very, very simple on how they have it. Okay. This is 6 points are awarded for a win against a FBS team. Okay. 4 points for a win against a, out of conference against an FCS team. 4 points are subtracted when you lose to, let's say, a D2, a D3, whatever. Okay. Team with the highest point total goes to the Celebration Bowl. If a tie exists, you see all that good stuff. Okay. Bottom line here is, here's 1A. Neither of the 3 teams have beaten an FBS team. Okay. So that does not apply here. All right. 1B. 4 points awarded for non-conference wins. All right. North Carolina Central has defeated FAMU, Southern, East Texas A&M, and North Carolina A&T. That's 16 points. South Carolina State has beaten Wofford, Bethune-Cookman, and also North Carolina A&T. They would have 12 points. Delaware State, they beat Albany and St. Francis. 6 points. They don't get anything for that homecoming win against Southern Connecticut State, and they don't get anything for beating Bowie State. Okay. C is not applicable because neither one of them lost to a non-Division I opponent. And so if this was a three-way tie, North Carolina Central would go to the Celebration Bowl if they had a three-way tie. Period. That's it. Okay? That's the MEAC tiebreaker. All right? So, everybody hit the like button as I get ready to go to the SWAC, which is right here. If the season ended today, it would be Prairie View at Jackson State. Reason being is Jackson State, they beat a host team due to being ranked in the FCS. I'll show you that here in a second. The easiest way that Jackson State would host if they won the East, just win your last two games. That's it. Easiest way that Prairie View would host if they won the West, win out, win your last two, and see Jackson State lose once. All right? That's it. That's the way it would work. All right? And here's what the tiebreaker policy is. Now, mind you, again, everybody, you can look this up yourself. This ain't Wild Wayne just found something special. This is on the SWAC website under the tiebreakers. Okay. Head-to-head competition, neither one of them played each other. Okay. At least if we're talking about Prairie View and Jackson State in this scenario, they didn't play each other. Their overall conference record versus common divisional and non-divisional opponents is the same. The record versus divisional opponents is the same. So it would go to number 4, which would be the subdivision FCS ranking. Okay, so that would break the tie in this situation. And mind you, this is what it is today. All right, something could change in the last 2 weeks, but this is what it is today. Okay, now let's go on to the West scenarios. All right. No, let me pause. Yeah, if JSU loses again. So again, I'm only showing for what it is today, just today. That's it. Just today. Okay? If things change, then next week I'll have a different screen. But right now I'm just keeping it simple week to week. That's it. Okay? But I do have some other scenarios. Just stick with me, y'all. Stick with me. Okay? Here's the West. Very simple this week now. Prairie View, they can win the West with a win. They beat UAPB, they win the West. Or if they lose to UAPB and Grambling also loses at Alcorn, they'll still win the West. Okay. With Prairie View, pretty much, I mean, it's there. They've got UAPB and Valley at home the last 2 weeks. So as I said, Wednesday, if you can't win 2 games at home, you probably didn't deserve to win the West anyway. All right. Grambling, they are still alive. They stayed alive yesterday by winning. Okay. They have to win their last 2 games, and they need Prairie View to lose its last 2. Remember, they played head-to-head, and Prairie View beat them at the State Fair Classic. So that's why they need 2 wins, and they also need 2 Prairie View losses. Period. Okay, now, here's another note. If Prairie View loses this week and Grambling beats Alcorn, then the same scenario repeats itself next week. It'll be the same thing. It would then be Prairie View could win the West with a win over Valley and or Grambling, or if they lost to Valley, then Grambling would have to lose to Southern. Okay, so that's it. All right, that's how this works for the West. Now we go to the East, and this definitely got a little bit lighter with the outcomes of yesterday. Bethune-Cookman losing, man. They're in some pretty dire straits now, okay? So this is how it looks as of today. Jackson State can actually win the East next week with a win over Bethune-Cookman and an Alabama State loss to Valley, okay? They could actually win the East next week. That's how, all right? Alabama State, they have to win their last 2 games, and they need a Jackson State loss. That's how Alabama State can win the East. And once again, Alabama State, they do not own the tiebreaker on Jackson State. because of how they lost that game head-to-head back on October the 11th. All right? And then Bethune-Cookman, they are still alive, but it's very faint at this point. They need to win their last two games, and they need Jackson State and Alabama State both to lose their last two. Obviously, they have a chance to affect one of those two games that they need their competitors to lose. But it's pretty dire at this point for Bethune-Cookman. It would have been simpler had they won yesterday, but now that's out the window. All right. So basically, this is where it's at, man. Jackson State, if you just win your last two games, even if regardless of what Alabama State does, you'll win the East. All right. Now, here's some advanced scenarios. All right. Here in the East. All right. Now, if both Jackson State and Alabama State both win, or if they both lose next week, the scenario in week 13 would be this. Okay. It would be Jackson State would win the East with a win over Alcorn. Okay. Alabama State in the final week would be to be able to win the East, would be able to win it with a win over UAPB and a Jackson State loss. If both teams lost in week 13, which is the final week, then Jackson State would still win the East on a tiebreaker. All right. So that's what that is. And that is that. Okay. So here's the East in its simplest form. Jackson State, they win. Alabama State loses this week. It is a wrap. If not, if Alabama State and Jackson State both win, then you go on one final week. And then the scenario would be, just as I said on the previous screen, it would be Alabama State would need to beat UAPB at home, and they would need Alcorn to go to the vet and upset Jackson State. And then, as I said before, in the West, Prairie View, win this week, it's yours. Period. Okay? So that's where it is. All right? Now, here are the standings, just so everybody can see the standings. All right? So with Bethune-Cookman losing yesterday, they now are falling back to 4-2. And like I said, they're in pretty dire straits at this point. So it really is a two-horse race at this point. And also considering the fact of what both teams have in front of them, talking about Jackson State and Alabama State. But, Jackson State owns the tiebreaker. And then you go over here to the West, you see that Prairie View, by reaching that fifth win, they eliminated Alcorn and Texas Southern yesterday because they hold the tiebreaker on both of them head-to-head. So that's why both teams are eliminated. So it's pretty much down to them and Grambling. And like I said, it's pretty dire straits also for Grambling. But hey, they fought. And then for the MEAC, as I said before, you got your 2 0-3 teams at the bottom, and then you've got Howard, which is out of it now, and then you've got the 3 teams that are still alive. And that is what it looks like there in the MEAC. All right. Now I move to my ride tokens for week number 11, ladies and gentlemen. All right. And once again, everybody, make sure you like the stream. Like the stream, everybody. My first ride token this week goes to Mr. Cam Peters. Cam Peters, 394 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's a great game for you. Career highs in each of those categories. And for that, sir, you get the first offensive ride token this week. My next ride token this week, it goes to Mr. Hayden Benoit from Grambling State. Mr. Benoit came in, 4-string quarterback, didn't look the part, man. Great game for him, man. 220 yards, 4 touchdowns. Excellent game, young lad. And, he probably is going to end up being the starter for the rest of the season. We'll see. But he gets the second ride token. Nathan Rembert returned back home. Returned back to Valley. Back to the scene of the crime. Had 6 receptions for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nathan Rembert, you've been doing well here lately, man. Welcome to the ride tokens for this year. You got one for me last year in that game when you played for Valley when you guys won at FAMU, but you get one this year. All right. And finally, I call this the special token because Jared Washington, he did something really, really interesting yesterday for South Carolina State. He returned an interception and a blocked field goal for touchdowns. So for that, you get the special token. So you get that. So these are my 4 ride tokens for week number 11, ladies and gentlemen. And we're getting close to the end of the season, man. It's getting real, real close to the end. So congrats to these guys. And I see lots of love for big ups to Mr. Washington. Yeah, man. He had a really good game. And then I see some love for Nate the Great. Yep. He say, say the name Washington again. Washington. Washington. All right. Now let's switch over to our schedule for next week, man. We're in week number 12. Week number 12, man. Craziness. The season is right there, man. As I said, down the stretch. So here we go. Next week, week number 12, you've got FAMU going to play Alabama A&M. This is Alabama A&M's final home game of the season. That will be early kick to 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. That'll be on SWAC TV. You've got Texas Southern going to the Bluff for the home finale there for Southern. It will be on SWAC TV. You got the Port City Classic down there in Mobile. So Valley is the designated home team in this game. They're going to play down there in Ladd-Peebles Stadium there in Mobile. That'll be a 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central start. That'll also be on SWAC TV. You got an early kick there in the Vet on the Griot, with Bethune-Cookman coming to the Vet to take on Jackson State. That game will be at noon Central. So get your tailgating done early there, Jackson State fans, because that game kicks off at 12 noon local time, and it'll be on 1 p.m. Eastern on the Griot. The Griot, that is the secondary network that HBCU Go is on. Byron Allen operates that network as well, so it'll be on the Griot. It's also something that you can find on Sling TV. I have it on Fubo TV, so you can find it. It's out there. You guys just ask around, people will tell you. But yeah, very early. He said noon. Yeah, man. And I'll tell you why they put this game early, because HBCU Go, they're also showing the CIAA title game that comes on kind of right after that game. So that's kind of why. But so on and so forth. We've got Pine Bluff hitting the road. They're going to take on Prairie View. Now that's Prairie View's attempt to clinch the West Division on their home field with a win. That'll be on SWAC TV. And then you got the finale on the reservation for this season, where Grambling, they go down there to take on the Alcorn St Braves. That'll also be on SWAC TV. And yeah, man, I remember what it was a couple years ago down there on the reservation. I'm sure folks will talk about that. But yeah, that'll be a game. All right. So that's the SWAC schedule for next week. He said, I hope they have more than 2 fans in attendance. Look, man, listen, they ought to have a lot of folks, man, because listen, this is the chance to clinch the West in front of your home fans, man. Show up. Said they'll have 500 fans. Come on, man. Oh, and you know something? Oh, yes. Thank you, John Richardson. Yes. People were talking about how the attendance of Alabama A&M was 1,126. That's inaccurate. They were missing a digit. It was actually 11,126. Okay. That was an error made by us, Alabama A&M. It was high school senior day. They had a lot of people out there. And then once the game got out of hand, then folks didn't stay around. And yes, thank you, Jonathan Barnett. That photo was from the third quarter. HBCU Sports, and I'm not trying to bag on them here tonight, but they posted this and they took it down once they received word that it was inaccurate. And they showed a picture that was from the third quarter after the game was already way out of hand. All right. So we just want to clean that up. Thank y'all. Okay. So Alabama State, he said Alabama State game. That's important. Yeah. Got it. I get it. All right. So now we move to the MEAC. Big game in the MEAC. This game will be on Friday. Very early on Friday, actually, too. It'll be on 5 p.m. Eastern on Friday. A lot of folks are not happy about it. But such is life. It'll be on ESPN2. It's a huge game in the MEAC for all the reasons that I already mentioned. Definitely looking forward to previewing this game on Wednesday. All right. Then you got Morgan State. They go to Norfolk State as Norfolk State tries to get a win, get their first win. And well, both teams are trying to get their first win in MEAC play. That'll be on ESPN Plus. Then you got an equally big game there for Delaware State now. They finished their last 2 games at home, and they can't afford a slip up with the Howard Bison coming to town. All right. That'll also be on ESPN Plus. Tennessee State, they finish out their home schedule in the Big South OVC. They take on Gardner-Webb, the running Bulldogs. That'll be on ESPN Plus. You've got Hampton. They take on the William and Mary Tribe. That'll be on Flow College. And then Monmouth comes to Aggie Land there, Truist Stadium in Greensboro, to take on North Carolina A&T there on Flow College Sports as well. So, you've got a really, really good schedule here. Interesting schedule in the MEAC. And then on the right side of the screen, you just got 3 teams that all have the same record: 2 wins, 8 losses, looking to just finish the season out on a high note. But yeah, once again, here is the schedule that is before you for the SWAC for next week, and govern yourselves accordingly. So you've got noon kickoff local time there in Jackson. And then you got 2 p.m. local time kickoffs in Huntsville, in Baton Rouge, in Prairie View, in Alcorn. And then you have a 4 p.m. local kickoff there in Mobile for the Port City Classic. So, you're going to be using the SWAC TV app, flipping around back and forth. And you'll have your television on the griot and all that good stuff. So get you some good tailgating this week and all that great stuff. So tonight, I've covered all of the scenarios. I've covered all of the great things that we have for week number 12. I've gone over all the games that took place this week. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves for this show. Some of you tuned in for the very, very first time, and I appreciate all of the love. I hope everybody subscribes. As you can see, your boy is getting very, very close to that 1,000 subscriber part. And I want to say this too about me getting to 1,000 subscribers. One thing that I will do, that I always said that I would do, is this show will always be free. I'm not going to do any memberships or anything like, and again, this ain't casting any aspersions to anybody else that does memberships. You do what you do. For me, I just want to keep this show free. So I just enjoy everybody that comes on. You come with your active comments. You come with your questions. You come with your energy. I appreciate all that every single week. I will be back this week, Wednesday, at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Central, as I preview a very, very busy week number 12 as we hit down the stretch. Again, if anybody has any questions about scenarios, if people ask you about it, just direct them to Wild Wayne Show. Okay. Again, the scenarios that I showed for you earlier is just in its simplest form, and it's just week to week. All right. So I hope everybody is well out there. And tomorrow I'll be on the SWAC coaches call and also the MEAC coaches call. So you know that there will be a lot of questions that get asked. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you all. And we will see you all, like Mr. King said, we'll see you on Wednesday. God bless you all. Good night and be safe.
Thank you for joining us on the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright. As you exit the ride, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit the like button, and catch up on all of our prior episodes. Until next time, God bless.